government or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this Wednesday night, May 6, 2026. Okay, we're going to have on Patrick Wood. We're going to have on Jason Pratt. We're going to have on Michael Weiner. We're going to talk about, apparently some pastors, some of them I think are really false teachers, but whatever. Some of them have supposedly been brought together in the eastern part of Tennessee and briefed by a government official or two, so we're told, on preparing Christians in the church in America for the UFO information that is going to be released that could shake their faith. Okay, I'm not so sure about that. We've been talking about UFOs for a long time. It's not going to shake my faith. I think it's demons. We're going to play some video clips from some members of Congress tonight and have a literal rocket scientist and a Christian, Jason Pratt, respond to that tonight, because that's going everywhere. People are sending it to me and asking me, hey, you guys going to talk about this? Yes, we are. Then I'm going to talk to Patrick Wood. I want to play for you what MSNBC, Logan found this clip today. This is really interesting. I want to talk to Patrick Wood about this and the implications. So I want you to watch this news clip, because this is what's coming up after Jason Pratt. Watch this clip.
Well, Andrew, it's an unlikely partnership. Span, which is a small startup that makes smart home electrical panels, is teaming up with NVIDIA and PulteGroup, a major U.S. home builder. Span is now making small fractional data centers, or they call them nodes, that can be put on the side of residential homes. The idea is to take advantage of unused electrical capacity on local grids, which the Span smart panels can find. Now, a network of these nodes talking to each other across the country is about the equivalent of a mid-sized traditional data center. So these could negate the need to build as many. Hyperscalers and AI cloud providers just tap into the node network like a regular data center. Now, Span collaborated with NVIDIA using its technology in the system. Span claims it can install 8,000 of these units about 6 times faster and at 5 times lower cost than the construction of a typical centralized 100 megawatt data center of the same size. Now, Pulte Homes is in the early testing phase with these systems, which they have already deployed in a handful of communities. Now, why would a homeowner want this? Well, because they would just have to pay one flat fee for electrical and Wi-Fi, which Span said would be roughly $150 total, so a lot less than everybody's normal electric bill. So for much more on this story, as well as my latest podcast with the CEO of a company that is deploying $100 million to put home closings on the blockchain, it is all in this week's Property Play newsletter.
Wow. Okay. So you put one of those inside your house. I got a lot of questions for Patrick on that. What does that mean? What other things will they be wanting to gain from your home? What information? Maybe everything you're buying on Amazon, or you're searching to buy, or what? Are they going to collect data as part of the deal to train their AI and maybe sell the data of what it is you want and buy so they can sell that to advertisers? You know, potential, as you being a potential customer of their product? I don't know. I want to ask Patrick about it. Then at the end, she said a company is spending about $100 million to tokenize home closures. Okay, I have a lot of questions about that tonight. Let's see if we can figure out how this tokenization of homes would work. Not just your home or your mortgage, if you have one, and many of you, I'm sure in this audience by now, have your homes paid for, some of you. But what does that mean as far as the ability to go out and buy a percentage of a home with many, many, many other people around the country? In other words, you say, I'd like to get in the rental business, but I can't afford to go buy a whole house. I don't want to buy a whole house, but I could go in and buy 5% of some guy's mortgage and get a percentage of return. What would that look like? How would that operate out in the digital world? I'm going to ask a lot of questions tonight and try to figure this out. And believe me, I have a lot of questions. I think a lot of you have questions, because a lot of you will email us saying, I don't understand how this tokenization thing's going to work. I also want to ask, what is this going to do to regional banks, your local banks? Are we headed to where we just have, a few big banks and that's it? The whole system being consolidated? Talk about control. Well, I have a lot of questions tonight. Then I want to talk to Mike Weiner about this article. Henry Paulson, the former Treasury Secretary who took the country through the 2008 crisis, he suggests that we need to make a break the glass emergency plan. I talked about it tonight in my Worldview report. I want to talk to Mike about that. And also, I guess there's going to be a ton more quantitative easing for the second quarter of this year. Again, can you say inflation or debasement of your money, losing value right away? All right. I think that's everybody. So tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social, tell everybody we're here. You know we're brought to you by you. I say it each and every night. Please. Hey, Melissa talked to someone today that has been using the Bella Grace now for some time. And this dear lady said that if it didn't work, she would stop ordering it. But it does work. And she was telling Melissa how she has benefited from this elixir. So many of you that order this, you're on subscription the way Melissa and I are. And it just shows up every month. And you don't cancel it like this dear lady was saying to Melissa on the phone today, because she said it works. She said, if it didn't work, I would cancel it. But you guys, I'm so thankful for Bella Grace. And she was explaining her issue and how Bella Grace fixed it. Well, you know how it fixed my cracked and bleeding hands that I had for years and years and years, so I can frame myself up there. You know that it's given me more hair growth, no doubt about it. I haven't taken a Pepsid since December of 2023. I think my skin looks better and younger. There's a lot of benefits to this. And we hear from so many of you about it. And Melissa said, you need to tell the listening friends tonight about this dear lady who gave that testimony. And so there I've given it. So I take the elixir. Melissa loves the skin care. You have the Bella Trim to stimulate your body's natural GLP-1. There's so much there at MelissaHowseBG.com, MelissaHowseBG.com. Of course, there's the Swish for Life. That's the Numi. That's the Numi, which has got glutathione in it to detox your cells. And the studies show, and there's 165,000 studies on glutathione, by the way, can reduce the mercury and the lead and the metals in your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. And we swish with this every day around here. And then the third thing that I do is, and Melissa does, is we take the Gatatana right there. This is an all-natural phytoplankton. Nothing has been added to it. Dolly gets a half a scoop on her food every day. There's a pet product. So she takes it, half a scoop. I get a full scoop in my water that I drink with my dinner every night. And again, remember the man that was behind this, he got a terminal diagnosis. Remember that? A terminal diagnosis. And he started eating the phytoplankton from the tank behind him. See that tank? And he was given a terminal diagnosis. He began extracting a small amount of seawater from the Strait of Georgia through the pipeline, and it goes on from there and producing this stuff. But then he started taking it. First, he was feeding the phytoplankton made up of 200 single cells exclusively to shellfish. But several months ago, while walking among the tanks of his business, he decided to have a taste himself. I said, "Are you crazy?" That's his daughter talking. And he said, "What do I got to lose?" 1 year ago, he was diagnosed with a rare form of lung cancer for which there was no known cure. Since he began eating the algae, the cancer tumors in his lungs have stopped growing and are now benign. A situation, Harper said, has puzzled his physicians. They did 11 sites for biopsy, and every one of them is clear. He was also insulin dependent, diabetic, but no longer requires insulin since taking the algae. He also had an overactive thyroid and could not control her weight. I guess she did. Then she started eating the algae and went from a size 12 to a size 4 in just 4 months. She said her intention wasn't to lose weight. It was just a preventative. She says she has no way of knowing for certain whether the algae contributed to her father's newfound good health, but she's glad he decided to eat it all the same. Well, from that, folks, he went on to live another 10 years. And from that, Global Plankton Alliance was built. So I'm not making claims. I'm just reading his story, his own personal testimony. And he's on video. You find it on YouTube. We've played it before. So, yeah, I take this every day. And, well, I think you should. That's my opinion. Check it out, MelissaHouseGPA.com, MelissaHouseGPA.com. All right? Don't forget, we're always looking for more people to help us stay on the air and push out this programming, whether by supporting your health, which I think you do with Bella Grace, Numi, Gatatana, but also as a foundation contributor. Would you consider, if you haven't already, setting up an automatic contribution, $10, $15, $20, $25 a month? You can do it at worldviewfoundation.com by finding our mailing address on that site or by using the phone number on the page if you'd like to make a contribution over the phone. And then finally, before we go to our first guest, Jason Pratt, don't forget our national conference coming up Friday night, October 23rd, Saturday, October 24th, doing something for the first time in 22 years, making our national conference free, but you must reserve a seat. We'll send you the ticket, a wristband, about 10 days before the conference. Full details and to register your seat, worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. Let me go there real quick, worldviewtube.com/events. And you can find out about all the speakers, who's going to be there, and reserve your seat now. worldviewtube.com/events. Joining me now is literal and real rocket scientist Jason Pratt. He's back to talk about, well, something I've told you over and over for a long time I never touched. It was like talking about Bigfoot. You just don't do it if you want to be credible. But now we have no choice. A few years ago, we had to start talking about it because everybody was talking about it, including the government. And that is UFOs. We had no choice but to start talking about it because Congress was holding hearings on it. We even had the Pentagon releasing papers, working with a Harvard professor. Here is one right here. Look at this. Physical constraints on unidentified aerial phenomenon, March 7th, 2023. It was with a Harvard University professor. And he claimed that these are dandelion seeds, these UFOs. They're separated really from the parent craft by tidal gravitational force of the sun or by maneuvering capabilities. And they're basically exploring the Earth. And they did this whole long paper on it. I'm not going to go through all this again. I've done it before. And so we had no choice but to talk about it. Well, now there are reports that a so-called group of pastors have been gathered together here in my state of Tennessee, over on the east side of the state, and briefed by a couple government people to warn them, the pastors, to warn the church in America about what's about to be released, and that many Christians will be rocked in their faith. They'll find it so shocking what's about to be disclosed. It'll make them question so much about their faith and origins and maybe the Bible. And supposedly these government officials want these pastors they brought together to start warning the church and preparing the church. Well, I don't know how much that is true. I know some of these guys are out there saying it, but some of the guys that are being interviewed and making the news, I would put them in the category of being like Paula White, okay? I'm sorry. I'm not going to promote those guys. I'm not going to name those guys. I'm not even talking about them by name tonight because I'm not giving them any publicity. That's why I'm kind of a little suspicious of this, to be frank. But it's everywhere today. People talking about it. Sean Hannity just, well, in the last day or so, has asked the FBI Director Kash Patel about it. I'll play a clip. So let's talk about UFOs. Whether the government is really warning so-called pastors, I don't know if I believe that or not. But if they want to warn Christian leaders and real pastors, I would really advise them. Can you not call the Paula White types? Can you actually start calling in some legitimate Bible teachers and tell them what it is you think you have? Sure, we'll gladly talk about it from the Bible. But let's talk about it from the Bible with people that actually know how to teach the Bible in context, not more theological nut jobs like Paula White, because I think that's exactly what she is, in my theological opinion. Joining me now is Jason Pratt. Hello, Jason.
Hello, Brannon. Thanks for having me.
What do you make of that little opening monologue?
Yeah, this is fascinating. I've had a lot of discussions, obviously, based on what I do, just talking about UFOs and other space type topics, and family members. Several family members are astonished when they find out, one, that I'm a creationist, and then two, that I don't believe there's anything such as extraterrestrial life on other planets or elsewhere in other galaxies, for a number of theological and biblical reasons, as well as scientific reasons. I've had plenty of interesting conversations on that topic. And then obviously, just from my flying and the number of videos that people have seen now of various flying objects like the Tic Tac from the Navy. I've flown in that very area where that video was shot. I know that area very well. And I personally, I have seen two things that I couldn't identify at first, and then some and one that I ultimately did identify, and we can talk about that in a moment.
Okay. Well, the Tic Tac, that's been caught out there on video. I think they were flying off of the USS Nimitz, if I remember correctly. Logan.
Yeah, they were on the California coast there. Yep.
Uh-huh. Logan, you can bring up that video if you want to. It's all over the internet, USS Nimitz. Let me go to start with the video by Sean Hannity interviewing FBI Director Kash Patel recently about this. Here's a video clip on that.
Would be life on other planets that may be visited here that would not at all shock or surprise me. Have you ever looked into it?
We're looking at it. Here's the thing. Again,
okay, I want all the details.
Here's the thing. Every other president before President Trump could have said, hey, let's look at that and get the American people the information. What did he do? He stood up an interagency process with Department of War leading that effort to get out the documentation related to everything that you're talking about, not just from the FBI, from the IC and everywhere else. And so what do? We already delivered our first tranche of information to that committee, and they're going to be publicly releasing this information very soon. We are all for it. There's nothing in this subject that we're talking about that we don't want released. Our job at the FBI is to work with the White House and DOW, give them the information, and then they're going to put that out in a methodical process. And you're going to start seeing those releases literally happening in the very near future. We just met on it.
All right. So this is what's going around. President Trump has been saying this for a while. Here he was with some of the astronauts from the recent Artemis flight. Here he is with them just, I don't know, a week or two ago.
Very solid people. And they said they saw things that you wouldn't believe. So you're going to be reading about it. To get in there, you have to be very smart. You have to do a lot of things physically good. So I would have had no trouble making it. I'm physically very.
All right. Was that the full clip? I don't know. Let's try this again.
Thank you very much. We have some people that have captivated the attention of the whole world, not just our country, the whole world. And they're very brave. And there was a lot of rocket under them. I never saw anything like that. We were talking about it. It's I don't know how they do it. I wouldn't want to do it. But it takes people like this to make our country great. And again, I've never seen anything. Everybody I knew, they wanted to see the launch. And they especially wanted to see a successful landing. Well, I think we're going to be releasing as much as we can in the near future. For some reason, and I guess it's just a reason that's been in the minds of people for a long time, that is such, they want to find out about the UFOs and anything having to do with UFO or related material. And we're going to be releasing a lot of things that we have. And I think some of it's going to be very interesting to people. I've interviewed people, my first term primarily, but I interviewed some pilots, very solid people, and they said they saw things that you wouldn't believe. So you're going to be reading about it. To get in there, you have to be very smart. You have to do a lot.
All right, there you go. So this is, again, growing in news. Now, we have done several shows on this, Jason, and I have been stating that I believe that a lot of this is laying the foundation for major spiritual deception. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, actually, hey, man, in fact, I got my Bible open right now to Matthew 24, verse 24. And that's exactly what it speaks of. In fact, it says, "For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect." It's going to be that powerful that even the elect in Christ, true believers, are going to be tempted to be deceived. They're not going to be deceived, but the deception is going to be strong enough to obviously deceive the rest of the world and all those who aren't truly in Christ. And so they will be led astray. Now, what specifically is that going to involve? We don't know. Could it be these UFOs and other demonic activity? Absolutely, it will, among other things, performing these miracles and miraculous things. And a lot of the technology that is promised or expected or hoped for in various extraterrestrial, more advanced cultures and worlds beyond ours and throughout the other galaxies. Science fiction is one of the most popular forms out there in media and in movies and books. And so, the imagination can easily run wild, and expectations will match that. And Brannon, as you well know too, this is a worldview issue. Really, it's really going to boil down to your worldview. Is your worldview informed by Scripture, or is it going to be informed by the shifting sands of the world and so-called science, or science falsely so-called, as the Bible says, and this evolutionary concepts and theories that really are just scientifically impossible and false. So. I have a lot to say about that, and I think the deception is going to be pivotal. It's going to be part of the core of this whole movement.
When you study the book of Revelation, there's so many things going on cosmically, right? Asteroids, meteorites, all kinds of stuff. Right before the return of the Lord, you've got the red moon. You've got all of these things talked about in Joel chapter 2 and so many other places in Revelation as well that correspond. You've got all kinds of demonic activity. It looks like all kinds of demons being released from the abyss, part of God's judgment on the world. But there's just weird stuff going on in the heavens, if you will. The first heaven being, where the birds fly and everything. And then you got some things going on that the Bible talks about are signs of God's judgment. So I don't know where, the mix here is a mixture between what we know is what the Bible says God's going to be doing, using nature to judge people. They want to worship nature. You want to worship nature? It's kind of like, really? You want to worship nature? Here, I'll give you some nature, right? And the very nature they were worshiping is turning on them as God uses it as judgment. And then you got all of this demonic activity, these entities that are released that have like the heads of a horse and the tails of a scorpion, right? That are tormenting the people. So I don't know what all is going on, the demonic activity that is taking place on the earth. But I wonder again if some of this demonic activity fits in with the things that are, like UFO type things. I don't know. I just know that Luke chapter 21, verses 25 to 28 says, "And there will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars and on the earth, distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring." Verse 26, "Men's hearts failing them from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken." And of course, then you have the coming of the Lord. So I don't know, Jason, at what point, some of this is these demonic entities that God is going to allow to do whatever it is they're going to do. Because in the end of the day, I think you and I agree that there is not extraterrestrial life. I think you've already said it, that this is really demonology. And I know that there was a very well-known UFO guy that for years talked about it being extraterrestrial. Valet, I think was his name. And he came out later, after many years of being an expert, and said, these are the things of demonology. So he's gone from saying they're extraterrestrial to saying they're interdimensional. They don't show up on the radar coming in or on the radar going out. They appear. They're interdimensional. He said it's demons. And this is Jacques Vallée, one of the leading experts on UFOs, gone from extraterrestrials to saying, nope, I think it's the thing of demonology. So I don't know what the government has. What do you think the government has? You you got this. Do you have the clip, Logan, from that Congresswoman? What's her name? Anna Luna something or another? Anna Luna.
Yeah.
Is she saying, she says, I haven't seen an aircraft, but I've seen evidence with pictures. What are these people being shown, do you think, Jason?
Yeah, well, first I'd like to step back. I think you're exactly right as far as, God, look at Egypt and the plagues that God sent, right? Each of those plagues attacked a god that the Egyptians worshipped as a direct affront to those, and also for mankind and for the Jews as they were leaving and getting ready to then, they were going to start worshiping false gods, that God pronounced judgment on these false gods. And I think that the same is going to be true in the future. God hasn't changed. All these false gods of worshiping nature, but also worshiping the extraterrestrials that so much of humanity is going to hope that they will come and deliver us from, climate change and climate catastrophes and diseases. And they're going to bring, advanced medical technology and other advanced technologies for transportation and all the rest. These are false hopes. These are going to be idols and things that mankind will worship as every other false god. And even when you go back and look throughout history, the various, like you had witches and gnomes and trolls and other types of unique and fanciful beings. And then as technology started to advance, those things transformed from being, ghouls and goblins into extraterrestrials. And so it's just as technology advanced, then the shape or form or the expectation that really is manifestations of I believe, the demonic realm and would be biblically consistent, then that has advanced as well. There's also good, interesting programs out there of ancient aliens, where you can look at these ancient, these old ruins that have things that look certainly like astronauts and extraterrestrial type things. They've been manifesting themselves in one way, shape, or form throughout human history. And so I think that's certainly what it is. Now, as far as what's being shown, I think just going back through various programs, like I'd like to refer to programs that were classified that are now declassified. So like the F-117 stealth fighter, also known as formerly its previous classified name was Have Blue. If you look up Have Blue and the stealth fighter, and maybe Logan could show that, imagine that flying around in the 70s, which is when it was flying around, and people caught a glimpse of that. That to me absolutely would have been a UFO. The shape, it was wild. It was very strange appearing. It didn't look like it should be able to fly. And it was just a very, very different appearance to anything that had been seen before. And so clearly, easily would have been mistaken as a UFO. Now, typically it only flew at night. But if people caught a glimpse of it, they would certainly have said they saw a UFO. And I would say even pilots having seen it. Now, granted, what some of the things we're seeing now are things that are moving at very rapid rates. Again, if you go back to the 50s, when the SR-71 was flying at over Mach 3, faster than a rifle bullet, that, again, pilots would have seen that and said, I have never seen anything move so fast. Has our technology advanced? Yes, it has. So I would submit that some of the things people are seeing are probably classified technology. Again, I know of certain things that were classified, now declassified. For example, we were testing launching balloons and having aircraft collect them, or dropping balloons in order to recover things that maybe were re-entering from space. And those would have strobes on them, and an aircraft would come along and with a kind of a big Y shape on the front of its nose and snatch the parachute line of this object, and all of a sudden it would zip off and then disappear, because once it was caught, then the strobe light would cease. Well, people saw these tests and saw this going on, and they mistook it for UFOs because it seemed to be hovering, slowly moving, slowly drifting, and then all of a sudden zipped off very rapidly. Well, that's because an aircraft grabbed it, and the aircraft was going 150 knots or more, and all of a sudden that light just zipped off all of a sudden and then disappeared. Well, that's what was happening, right? So I think a lot of these are going to be mistaken identities of things that are classified at various levels that even people with clearances aren't necessarily going to know about. So that's one thing I certainly think it could be. But I think then many of these other things are certainly going to be demonic. and they're going to be things that are interdimensional. The individual you mentioned before, I'm sure people can go in your vault and listen to your shows on that. And what changed him, and I forget the individual's name, I think he said Valet, was the interviews that he did of these various close encounters, right? These third kind close encounters, which are actual physical presence and close contact with these beings, these entities. They all involved spiritual matters, and they all seem to kind of revolve around the identity and person of Jesus, and blasphemy against God and other things. And so all of these had a spiritual component to them, which drove this expert to change his philosophy and say, you know what, this is clearly spiritual, and it's demonic because of the nature of these encounters. Always seem to revolve around this desire to destroy humanity, the image bearers of God, and to blaspheme God in some way, shape, or form. So I think just from a fair observation of the facts here should sort of start to help you guide your thinking on this. And then, ultimately, it comes down to repenting of your sin, put your faith in Christ, be born again, receive the Holy Spirit, and don't be a subject of this strong delusion that's going to deceive the world.
Well said. Here is Anna Paulina Luna on UFOs. Listen to what she has to say.
So the interdimensional beings is what our witnesses will call these things. I have seen evidence in a skiff that leads me to believe there are things we cannot explain, and I have observed things that are of non-human origin and creation. That's my opinion. Again, but there has been a declassification order from the president, and you will see as soon as that stuff comes out.
Right. So do you think that the American public's going to be super surprised when this comes out, or is it going to be a bit of a nothing burger?
Well, I don't think it'll be a nothing burger, but, we're not going to tell the American people what to make of it. But I think, when, again, you saw my last hearing that I did with the task force where there was some footage that was entered into the archive, and it's pretty shocking for people. I don't know much tech that can deflect a Hellfire missile. I don't know about you. But, I think
so. What do you think?
Footage that you'll see.
So what do you, if you had to just make a decision now about whether there really were, I guess, aliens moving among us with their strange machines that have all sorts of powers, do you think that's plausible?
I don't call them aliens, and I don't know what these things are that they're using, right? But I think that there's stuff that we have witnessed as members of Congress, been briefed on that we cannot explain. And I will leave it at that because that's going to be coming out soon. And I think that the American people will have many of their questions answered. But, there's stuff declassified years ago out of the Pentagon. Multiple videos, Tic Tacs. I think Tucker Carlson family actually had shown one of the videos. It looked like a pyramid that was flying around. And, people see it. They're like, yep, we knew it. And then they move on. So I don't think that, the Earth is going to stop moving. But I think that for a lot of people that are paying attention, it's just confirmation of kind of something that we already suspected.
It sounds like it's going to be a big nothing burger. That's almost what I heard. People are going to move on. Yeah. They're going to move on.
Well, a lot of it's just information without context. And so I'll relay a story of my UFO encounter. This was, I was out in a range. We were flight testing some equipment, and we had exclusive use of the range. So that means we were the only ones there. It's in a warning area. It's, radar controlled. We're talking to a range controller, and I get something on my radar, and it's moving 100 knots at about 24,000 feet. And I called the range and said, hey, we have exclusive use, correct? And they said, yeah, Roger, you do. And I said, all right, I've got a radar contact, and I'm going to go check it out. So it's at 24,000 feet, moving at over 100 knots. And again, shouldn't be anything out there. So I end up rendezvousing on it, come up alongside of it, and I see it, a glint from a distance at first, just a silver object that seems to be hovering. And it's very small, and I'm not sure what it is. So I get a little closer, and finally I can visually identify it. And it's a Mylar balloon. It's like a birthday balloon that is, only about 2 feet in diameter, and somebody, lost hold of their balloon, and it went up into the wind stream, and it was caught up in the jet stream. The jet stream air, the winds up in the jet stream move over 100 knots. So it was just caught in the jet stream winds, moving at about 110 knots. And with the Mylar, it's very radar reflective. I was able to get a radar lock and see this contact and then joined up on it. So the whole point is, hey, there's nothing, nobody sees anything in the area. I've got a radar lock. It's moving out over 100 knots. It's at 24,000 feet. There's supposed to be nothing else out here. What is it? So without context, what is it? And a lot of times this information can be very mysterious, confusing, tantalizing and exciting. But then when I rolled up on it and I see that it's nothing more than a Mylar balloon, surprise ended, and it's a big nothing burger, right? Same thing as I talked about earlier with parachutes coming down and aircraft testing, catching them in a device, basically a hook that can grab onto these. But people see them and they see these lights and they see them flashing, they see them moving, then hovering, and then quickly maneuvering in another direction that seemed absolutely impossible to accelerate from 0 to 100 in one direction instantly. Well, right, when you get more of the context, you find out what it is, and it turns out to be, oh, that's all it was. And I think a lot of that is going to be this. Now, it's going to be hard to distinguish, these things that just, without the context and a frame of reference of what the technology actually is or what's being tested or utilized. Is going to be hard for people to guess, to fill in all the blanks. There's going to be lots of blanks. There's going to be, like I said, missing lots of context. And again, there can be programs out there that even if you're in a SCIF stands for Secured Compartmented Information Facility. Well, the C compartment means there's various compartments, and not really any one person is necessarily briefed to all the compartments. You can't. There's too many. And so there could be compartments that individuals aren't briefed to, don't know about, and so you're missing a big piece of the puzzle. That's a good thing, actually, for security and to keep keep very important programs and projects secure, right? So you only get certain pieces of the puzzle, so you can't fill in all the blanks, and that's by design. That's why we have what's called SCI, Secured Compartmented Information. So. Yeah, I think a lot of this is going to be just misunderstanding. And again, we have to bring in the spiritual component. There is another dimension that we cannot see. We know there are angels and demons about us. There is a spiritual world. There is a spiritual dimension. And the Bible gives us a little bit about that, but not a whole lot. And I would refer people to Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 4 and through the rest of the chapter, and read that. What a fanciful, amazing vision that the prophet Ezekiel had that I can't explain, and I don't think until we get to the other side of heaven that we'll understand what exactly it was Ezekiel exactly saw. I just reading through it, trying to understand what's the intent and purpose of this vision, and what are we supposed to get from it from a practical application and theological perspective of understanding Ezekiel's prophecy.
Wow, isn't that something? Here is another video clip of the same Congresswoman. Here we go. Let's hear what she says here. Okay, let's see. This is what's going to play for us.
Of oversight, we follow up with whistleblowers, and we also can conduct our own investigation. So myself, Representative Burchett from Tennessee, and Representative Gates were on a small codel to the Panhandle because a whistleblower came forward from Eglin Air Force Base pilots to Representative Gates' office saying that the Air Force was essentially covering up UAP activity and we needed to look into it. So we coordinated the meeting. Pentagon tried to initially cancel the first one. We got it back on the books. We show up there and we get in, and the base commander tried to basically tell us that we didn't have authorized clearance to look into and speak to some of the witnesses, of which you don't tell Congress that we don't have the authorized clearance, especially members of House Armed Services, Oversight, and Judiciary. So I kind of had it out with the base commander, which is kind of funny because this guy really thought that he had it going on. And he actually, in the middle of our meeting, he took off on leave, which never happens with a delegation going to military base. But then also, too, we had pretty sure people from the agency that were there as well. And so you really don't find that. I've worked at Hurlburt Field. I worked in the military for a number of years. And so why would a intelligence agency need to be there on a meeting for whistleblowers? So that happened. I can tell you, based on my investigations, not in a classified setting, that I absolutely believe that there is things that are advanced technologies not of human origin. And then we conducted the interview with David Grush. As you saw, it was one of the most widely attended congressional hearings in U.S. history. The information that was brought forward was particularly alarming because you're hearing about people that have potentially been murdered and covering up this information, and it was very interesting. So I advise everyone to watch it.
Yeah, was it, so based off what, and have you received classified information or just what they said?
No, yeah, but I can't talk about that.
Of course you can't talk about it. So what did you, before you came to Congress, did you think aliens were real?
So I wouldn't call them aliens. I really like what Grush calls them. He says that they're interdimensional beings, and he's very specific about that.
So what does that mean?
I think it means that they're not necessarily a biological entity from another planet per se.
Interesting.
What I will say is, I share a Christian perspective on many things. And what's been interesting about this is the amount of stigma that existed previously to this cycle. But we have such a bipartisan push for transparency on this topic that they can't necessarily hide it. It has been interesting to see the levels of things that come up. Oh, there's no authorized clearance. You don't have the read-in authority for this, that, and the other. Well, if Congress is writing the bills to fund these programs, yet we don't have authorized access and oversight into it, then that's not necessarily something that happens in a free country, right? So we continue to push. But I mean, it's been very interesting to see some of the stuff that's come up.
Was it before you learned? Did you think it was going to be completely different than what you learned? Was it?
No, I had some suspicions leading up into it. When I was stationed at Portland Air Guard Unit a number of years ago, I remember there was a incident that occurred, and the pilots kind of came back and asked one of them what he thought it was, and he couldn't really talk about it. He didn't want to, because the stigma that the military has is that you're crazy, right? But we're seeing that with especially technology that we have, even your iPhone, for example, you can record things and it's not necessarily going to be classified. So I kind of knew about it. I knew that that was a thing within the military and that people were kind of worried about talking about it. But I think now, especially with transparency, we hope that more people come forward. The people that have come forward.
All right, so there you go. So she seems to think that they're interdimensional as well, that they're demonic.
Yeah, that she's saying that without saying it, right? Because she wants to kind of not get stigmatized, and she would, right? But I'm not concerned about that. So I'll say it. These interdimensional beings are demonic in nature, but I think that's a perfectly useful term, interdimensional, that are from something that we can't comprehend, can't see at this time. And I think she's right there. And I've briefed members of Congress in SCIFs, and when they get kind of read into a program, then they get full access. They, I tell them anything and everything they want to know about the program. We'll give them a full brief of what it is, and then answer any questions they have. Now, granted, there could be certain programs that, well, it's going to take some time. But anytime a member of Congress asks, hey, I want to know about what's going on, but sometimes you have to know about it to be able to ask about it, and then get briefed to it, and then hear it. And like I said, there's not necessarily going to be one member of Congress that's going to get every single compartmented brief. They've got to be maintained separate, again, for national security. So I respect that, but by the same token, yes, we are supposed to be a free country directed by our Constitution. And so if a representative of our citizens in Congress wants to hear something, they should be given full access to what it is that's being funded and paid for by the taxpayers. And so, yeah, I think there's going to be some amazing stuff that our military is doing that's very impressive. But these other things that are not of human origin, yeah, I would agree. I don't think they're of biological origin either. They're not of some other world beyond ours. It's another dimension, the heavenly dimension.
Wow. So how do you think the average church in America is going to respond to this, if you had to guess, particularly with the churches being so weak on Bible prophecy and so weak on biblical creation and being led to believe that, God used evolution? Why would they not be willing to accept the idea that there are societies and life are highly evolved on other planets? Hasn't really the so-called church in America and around the world, but let's talk about America, haven't they really been set up for believing in extraterrestrial life, being that they just rejected biblical creation out of hand?
There you go. Yes. Yeah, that's the exact point I was going to go to. Yeah, I think we're going to have maybe like 3 types of responses from the church in America. You know, and I've gone around and spoken at churches on creation and evolution and the Bible and science. And I've spoken at churches where the leadership was divided, and so they wanted me to kind of come in and maybe settle a debate. I don't know that I ever really did, because again, some of these individuals that want to believe the fairy tale of evolution are not going to be convinced otherwise. And so, but there we have it. I've spoken at churches where they are fully committed to evolutionary theory, and you can't tell them otherwise. Even when I bring in just sound science, you know, members of my own test pilot school class, when I was going through test pilot school, we were on a field trip, and my classmates found out I was a creationist. We spent the next 5 hours, I think, on the travel back home, debating. You know, there was basically 23 other students and myself debating on creation versus evolution and discussing it. And, you know, as smart as they were, there was a lot they didn't know, and I brought up a lot. And it was weeks later that some of them came out and said, wow, you know, I had to research that and look into it and realize there was a lot I didn't know. So I think you're gonna have churches that, just like on the creation topic, will not accept the simple, plain words of God, and they're gonna be duped by this science, falsely so-called, that seems to convince them that, well, the Bible doesn't mean what it clearly means, and I've got to interpret it through some other lens. So you're gonna have those, right? And they're going to jump right full, both feet in, and they're going to say, there we have it, we've got these extraterrestrials, and they're going to come up with some strange theology that somehow we're to worship them or to give them some kind of credibility, and some may just become atheists outright, right? They'll just reject, well, the Bible's, you know, we were lied to, and I believe the lie, and scriptures can't be trusted, right? Then there's going to be some that I think are that do trust their Bibles, and I think they're going to not pay it much mind, or they'll just explain it simply. I hope I've explained it simply, that yes, this is demonic. There we go. All right, it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. And what can we learn from it, and how can we trust the Scripture more and look all the more to the return of our Lord? That's it. And then I think there'll be something in the middle, something a little more wishy-washy, which I would say most churches in America are, when you look at their theological stance on women in the pastorate, for example, or other theological topics. They're very wishy-washy, and they don't take a strong stance. They don't have a good grasp of the scriptures or good application of the scriptures. As I always say, they don't have a good orthodoxy, and therefore they don't have a good orthopraxy, right? They don't, their doctrine and their practice are not aligned with scripture. And I think the majority of the churches in America are going to go that way.
All right, so we got to have everybody stay keen and in the scriptures, and we'll see where this goes. By the way, before we conclude, Jason, do you brought something from work to show us real quick on a different topic, right?
Yeah, I did, just to show kind of what you can expect if you saw this stuff flying through the air.
This is related to the same topic. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is equipment basically that is covering our satellites, right? So we've got what's called MLI, multi-layer insulation. You can see it's framed with black Kapton tape, and I've got some grounding wires on that, and I've got some, something like a silver-coated tape. So you can see this is kind of what satellites look like on their surface. You might see little, various objects like that, and so this is what spacecraft are covered in. They've got they're metal, but then they're covered on the outside. You've got some, Kapton tape and some copper tape, and there's black Kapton tape and gold tape, and I already showed you some silver-coated tape. So you might have various materials, whether it's 3D printed or aluminum or various composites that make the spacecraft structure, and then we coat them with these various materials, and that's to help manage the thermal environments up in space, as well as a little bit, not a whole lot, but it provides a little bit of help with the various radiation that the environment that the satellites are coming that are exposed to. So, just something to see that, yeah, these things look different than what you typically see. And even the pictures of a satellite, like if you look at a picture of a GPS satellite, when it's actually getting ready to be launched, it doesn't really look anything like what you see the picture because it's covered in blanketing material, essentially. So I just wanted to share that with some of these, what these, spacecraft look like, at least ones that are here made on Earth and launched into space.
Wow, isn't that something? Jason Pratt, literal rocket scientist. We plug a website, but he still doesn't have one up yet. But when he gets one, we'll plug it. Jason, as always, thank you for being with us.
You bet. Thank you. And just keep reading your Bible. Trust the
Absolutely.
Scripture.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brannon.
Thank you. Jason Pratt checking in tonight. And of course, we're going to come back to this because it is a topic that is of great interest, actually, to our audience and to many, many people. And of course, we'll be waiting to see what the executive order by President Trump allows to be released and what's in it. And we'll come back and talk about it when that happens. All right. We'll be right back after this short break. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. Worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. Joining me now is Patrick Wood. We're going to talk about several things. We just talked about UFOs with Jason Pratt. I also want to talk about that a little bit with none other than Patrick Wood, because this story, it's amazing how many people in the last 24 hours have emailed me the article from the Daily Mail talking about these religious leaders told, prepare now for UFO disclosure to unleash Bible-changing revelations. Well, wouldn't they just love for that to happen? Not going to happen with us, not with me, and not with many of you. We're not going to be shaken or change our view or our correct interpretation of the Word of God. I'm sticking with the Bible. How about you, right? Well, how does that all fit in with technocracy, transhumanism, global deception? And then I also want to talk about a new piece that Logan found today. Was that on CNBC, Logan? CNBC. Let's be joined now by Patrick Wood, and then we'll play that clip. Patrick, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
You bet. Good to be here.
Okay, Patrick. I don't want to promote some of these guys that are out here giving all this oxygen to the idea of they were briefed by the government as religious leaders. Apparently, they all got here in Tennessee and were being briefed. I'm just going to read it. I won't show the screenshot because I want to promote these guys. Influential pastors are claiming they've been told to prepare their followers for shocking revelations about UFOs, which may upend belief in the Bible. One of them is a well-known evangelist, but he's more of a word of faith guy like Paula White. So again, I'm not so sure what's going on here. But apparently they were brought in, and some people in the government want to get them to help prepare the church in America for what's coming. What do you make of this? I think it's demonology. That's my belief. It's demons. It's a part of a global deception. I think a lot of the church in America, sadly, is not prepared for it because they've been fed theistic evolution by their pastors and churches for so many years. Well, what are your thoughts on this before we go to this story today that Logan found, which is really kind of troubling, actually, but very interesting? What do you make of this, and how does it fit with transhumanism or technocracy?
I've documented the attack on Christianity through the lens of technocracy and transhumanism for several years now. And this makes perfect sense to me that the coup de grace will, so to speak, will be the release of all these alien files. Maybe there's something in them, maybe not, but that's not the point. The point is it's being focused, directed to destroy the faith of Christians, period. We've seen so many things happen just in this last year, for instance, with the death of Charlie Kirk, for instance, and how the whole TPUSA movement took a swan dive into heresy and deception. Absolutely amazing. The eschatology of millions of young Christians especially were changed when that happened. So we see the shift already taking place. This is just a continuation of the tidal wave, if you will, or maybe this is the big one. But it figures the devil is out to destroy the faith of Christians, period. And this is important for Technocracy going forward because we're the only people who are criticizing Technocracy at this point. And, you know, they have to discredit us if they can't do it head on. They can't attack my work, for instance, and your work as well, but they certainly can try to distract and discredit us in the eyes of Christians around the world.
Yeah, indeed they can. Okay, so here we have a news story Logan found today and showed me. I want you to watch this. I think this will blow your mind. Here we go.
Well, Andrew, it's an unlikely partnership. Span, which is a small startup that makes smart home electrical panels, is teaming up with NVIDIA and PulteGroup, a major U.S. home builder. Span is now making small fractional data centers, or they call them nodes, that can be put on the side of residential homes. The idea is to take advantage of unused electrical capacity on local grids, which the Span smart panels can find. Now, a network of these nodes talking to each other across the country is about the equivalent of a mid-sized traditional data center. So these could negate the need to build as many. Hyperscalers and AI cloud providers just tap into the node network like a regular data center. Now, Span collaborated with NVIDIA using its technology in the system. Span claims it can install 8,000 of these units about 6 times faster and at 5 times lower cost than the construction of a typical centralized 100 megawatt data center of the same size. Now, Pulte Homes is in the early testing phase with these systems, which they have already deployed in a handful of communities. Now, why would a homeowner want this? Well, because they would just have to pay one flat fee for electrical and Wi-Fi, which Span said would be roughly $150 total. So a lot less than everybody's normal electric bill. So for much more on this story, as well as my latest podcast with the CEO of a company that is deploying $100 million to put home closings on the blockchain, it is all in this week's Property Play newsletter.
All right. So what do you make of that, Patrick?
This is an interesting play. I just looked at the story in some detail already. We'll have to crunch the numbers. I don't see the numbers right off, but they're saying at this point. Remember, this is a startup company. This is not Pulte doing this. It's not NVIDIA doing it either. This is a startup company. I'm not sure who's investing in them already. I see some people like Amazon Alexa Fund, Wellington Management, that's another one, Arcturn Ventures, Capricorn Investment Group, et cetera. So this looks like there's an institutional money behind it. These people are struggling for answers for sure. I don't see, honestly, how this can work out numerically, because all of these things are going to be sucking power from the grid in the first place, and lots of it as well. And what they're banking on is to intercept the power at the homes rather than taking it from the power stations in the first place. So, you know, go figure. I don't think there's not enough energy to go around in society right now. And this is an interesting thing. So they say they're going to cap your energy bill and your internet bill at $150 a month, I think you said. That's total speculation at this point. They say, well, this is what we're going to do. No, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't see it that happen that way. So this is a new scheme, probably to fleece somebody and into paying for the data centers. And another thing to consider, this other story we're going to cover, I think, in Utah, where there's 40,000 acres being committed to a new data center up there. If you consider all the lack of permits to get a mini system installed at a home site, that's nothing. There's no virtually no process that has to be followed to get a permit to put these things up. So if you build a big data center, you have to go through all this rigmarole, permits, architectural stuff, et cetera. And plus you have to have your own power to power it. This is what's happening in Utah. So this answers some aspects of that. There's no regulations. Power will be taken from the user at the home site. You don't have to worry about creating your own power to power these things. And they say if they can gang them all together, like they're intending, it'll be a formidable piece of horsepower, so to speak, to run AI.
So I guess that's what one of them looks like. Wow, that's, But of course, aren't they going to also, the people that, I don't know, I haven't researched this enough, or I don't even know if there's enough information out there to research yet on this, but if you do this, are they going to be grabbing everything you're visiting? They're going to know every internet search you do, every website you visit. What kind of data do you think they're going to be grabbing from people to help their AI and build their system?
That's a good question. This is not really specified in their document, the white paper. I downloaded the white paper just a little bit ago, and it doesn't really mention the training aspect. But you would figure, if I was in their position, you'd want to take all the internet traffic from that home and put it into the training mechanism to train their AI on it. That makes perfect sense to me. I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't want it for me, for sure. But a lot of people won't even think about it. They say, well, that's the price of admission here. If I get my utility bill cut in half, I'll go for it.
What about also the fact that, I'm not saying this is what they're going to do, but it would make sense for the company to do it if you're trying to be profitable. Why wouldn't you sell off the data about each individual home, what it is they're buying? What, if you can see, I'm not saying they can, but if they can and choose to see every online purchase they're making, couldn't you, or what they're searching for to possibly buy, couldn't you then sell that data? So now you're directly harvesting data that you can sell, and that's very powerful and very lucrative, is it not?
Totally. This is how Google made all of its money in the first place. It wasn't by selling ads on search engines traffic. They did it with the data that was harvested from all those searches, and they turned it around. They sold it to other brokers and other companies for a bajillion bucks. This is what made Google rich over the years. The so-called exhaust data, that was the leftover data. They said, well, we'll just take advantage of that. We'll sell it to somebody, and just don't worry about it. It's just not important stuff. So, but now we know exactly what they did. There was a great book a few years ago by Shoshana Zuboff called Surveillance Capitalism that documented everything that Google did along the way. And now many other companies are following suit. This would be one company that probably would capitalize on the data that they can harvest and sell it to the highest bidder.
All right. So what do you make, by the way, let's go back to Utah, 40,000 acres for a data center. We talked about it last night. We played the video footage. The crowd's quite upset, but you also have progressives on there, people over profits. And so now you see, I think, a lot of people running to partner up with the Marxists or the progressives, the socialists, whatever you want to call it. That in itself is a problem, because while you may not want a data center and all that, you may agree with them on that, that doesn't mean that these are the people we want, because many of these people are socialist, right? So is this setting up that proletariat, the workers versus the bourgeoisie is that setting up that conflict again?
I don't think it's going to be that way. You know, I've talked about technocracy versus socialism and communism or whatever. Communists hated the technocrats in the 30s and 40s. They still do, in my opinion, because the technocrats, what they have in mind for humanity is to rob humans of their humanness. And if you do that, you don't have any ability to implement socialism or communism. That they're just mute at this point. So you know what the big takeaway on this huge thing, this 40,000 acres, that's roughly 8 miles on a side, a block of land, 8 miles on a side. That's a lot of land. 8 miles. A city block normally is a half a mile. Just consider that's what's going to be put on the earth. It's going to consume twice the power that Utah does in its entirety. And so they're making this like this is the God's answer for AI development. But here's the takeaway on this: they're using the military and on a oblique thing called the Military Installation Development Authority, MIDA, to get this through. This has never been done before. This is a new model that's being practiced by Kevin O'Leary, whatever his name is, and this is a new thing to put it in the context of national security. We have to fight against Russia, they say. And because they have some of their land that's going to be in a military establishment, they're using that to leverage the other 40,000 acres into this, basically this regulatory cesspool. And everybody, all these, the homeowners, the property owners in that area, they're going nuts, absolutely ballistic at this point. You can't imagine the anger these people have. I don't know if you can show some of it here, but this is here they're kind of being docile. But I tell you what, they're hot to trot.
But you don't think that, again, this is helping to brainwash a lot of young people about capitalism is evil and the free market system is at work. We need more regulation. I mean, isn't this really kind of shoving kids down that path when you have some people who are the progressives and the Marxists coming in, disrupting this meeting and pushing this agenda, people over profits, which I'm not for profits over people, but the young people today are looking for someone to stand up for them. Some of them joined the MAGA movement. That hasn't worked out for some of them the way they wanted. Yeah. So I am concerned, though, that this controversy is going to be used to help to emotionally manipulate young people into embracing ideas that maybe they otherwise would not have embraced.
It could be, but look at the age of the crowd. You see a lot of gray hair in that crowd.
Yes, you do.
These are property owners by and large. If you're not a property owner, you don't care where these data centers go. You're mobile. You're not attached to the property, and these people, I guarantee you, these are the people who are going to be most affected. Their taxes are going to go up. Their utility bills are going to go up. Their water bills are going to go up. Everything else is going to go up on them. And they're spitting mad. So I think most of this movement at this point is fueled by the older, probably 45 plus age group. And I don't see them necessarily as a Marxist crowd at large.
No, I don't think they are. No. I'm talking about the people on the far other side that are shouting people over profits kind of stuff. And again, if you look up some of these groups, they tend to be the progressive group. The progressives, in other words, what I'm saying is the progressives or the Marxists want to run in, act like the saviors, and convince the younger demographic that they're on their side. No, socialism, Marxists, progressives are not on your side, young people. They're not for liberty and freedom and a fair system. They're for a free ride, which means more government, more taxation, more redistribution of wealth. So what I'm saying is, don't think that those progressive groups are there and concerned about you. No, they're just looking for some kind of controversy they can get involved in to try to sell you their agenda.
This has always been the case, by the way. When somebody wants to get a cause going, first they have to have some hatchet to bury. It doesn't really matter what the hatchet is or what the issue is. When they want to make trouble, then they look for a cause to attach themselves.
Yes.
This is how this works. First, you get your angst on, and then you look for a cause. So it doesn't matter what the cause is. If you can play it to your advantage, that's what you do. This is what all these groups have done for decades and decades. This is, you see all these busloads of protesters show up for Antifa rallies and other, crazy disruptive rallies around the country. These people are all paid, and they're people looking for a cause. They didn't have one before, and now they have something that can stimulate the anger of the people. That's all it is.
Yep. And what do you make about the level of energy? What are they saying? It's like 7.5 gigawatts or something, Patrick?
It's absolutely off the charts at this point. And they promise that they're not going to take 1 ounce of energy from the local community. They say, well, they're going to tap into the gas pipeline. This happens to be running right through that property where they can get all the natural gas they want and build turbines. And so this is their intention to power that way. Probably they're going to have to look for power from nuclear as well, but that's in the future. Can't get that fast.
So what is that going to do to the grid? What is that going to do to, there's 3 grids, as everyone probably knows by now, but what is that going to do to the grid? Not to mention the flow of natural gas.
It's going to be a huge blow to the flow of natural gas for sure. I haven't seen this spec'd out in numbers, but my guess is that all of that natural gas is in a pipeline basically, and this is earmarked for people downline to power homes with natural gas, stoves, heaters, that sort of thing. This is earmarked for them. If this gets intercepted, like upstream, well, that's gonna mean there's less gas for everybody downline. That will raise prices. Certainly, it will.
Mm-hmm. Well, Logan, do we have one of those news stories where they're talking about putting home closures on blockchain?
That was on the end of that article, or on that video I played. She was teasing her other podcast interview.
Okay, can we cue that again?
Yeah.
So she was plugging her other podcast and talking about putting home closures on blockchain.
I have it.
Here it is.
For much more on this story, as well as my latest podcast with the CEO of a company that is deploying $100 million to put home closings on the blockchain, it is all in this week's Property Play newsletter.
Whoa, $100 million to get that set up? Is that what I just heard?
That's what you heard. Exactly. This is a trend right now. People don't see what's happening, even as it's in the news right now, like this story. But remember that just 2 or 3 weeks ago, the New York Stock Exchange announced they're going to tokenize the entire stock market. What? Wow. I mean, we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars of assets in the stock market, and they're going to tokenize the whole thing. The NASDAQ exchange as well is going to be tokenized as well. So the fact that this story comes out now, $100 million to start the tokenization process of home titles and transactions, et cetera. This is exactly what we're going to see in the future, and it's going to blanket America and the world with tokenization. This is called real world asset tokenization. This is what it's all about. It's going to be huge, absolutely huge. And this is why I wrote this book, by the way. If our video's working here, it doesn't. No, it's backwards. That always happens. But my book, The New Economics of Technocracy, You Will Own Nothing. This is exactly the system that's being implemented right now. This is going to be a huge sea change for free market economics in America, and it's going to be the end of property rights.
I just looked up asked one of the AIs about it. Speed, the potential benefits, speed, closings could drop from weeks/months to hours and even minutes. Lower costs, fewer middlemen, title companies, escrow agents, lawyers could cut fees significantly. Some claim up to 50 to 75% reduction. Transparency and security. All parties see the real-time status. Records can't be altered retroactively. Reduce title disputes and fraud. And then easier global or fractional investing in real estate. That last one's interesting. Easier global or fractional investing in real estate.
This is where it starts, at the local property level.
But what does that mean? Easier global. Let me ask it. What does that mean? What does that mean? Let me ask the AI. What does that mean? And let's see what it says back to me. Let's see here. Let's see. Whoop, wrong one. I wanted to know, no. Let's see here. Sometimes you have to fight with them. You notice that, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank you for that.
What does faster, what was the word that was used? Faster benefits. It was giving me the benefits.
It's more efficient. It's lower cost.
It was
they say
something about faster fractional reserve investing or something.
Okay,
let's see what they say here. Traditional fractional ownership, buying, selling your share can take weeks to months due to legal paperwork, title transfers, lawyers, and approvals. So it'd be faster you'll be able to sell it. You get your money quicker, I guess. Blockchain tokenization changes this dramatically. The property is divided. Okay, here we go. The property is divided into digital tokens like digital shares on a blockchain. These tokens represent your fractional ownership. You can buy or sell them almost instantly on online platforms or secondary markets, often in minutes, similar to trading stocks. So
do you see the problem?
Yeah.
Do you see the problem here? When something gets tokenized, ownership changes. There's no way to say that you own that property at this point. When it's spread to the winds, if you will, nobody can reclaim or regather all those tokens on your house to say, here's a clear title for your house. Be happy with it. And this is going to happen to millions and millions of people around the world who own stuff, not just houses, but businesses and cars as well. But when something is tokenized, you can't lay claim to that in the same way you did before. You'll be a renter at that point. You'll be a user with permissions on the blockchain to use that property, but you'll never own it. You won't have any value of it accruing to you. If there's profit on it, you won't see it. Now, here's another problem. They talk about buying and selling. The stock market has always had a mechanism placed in place where price is determined by the pool of investors, right? Some stocks go up, some go down based on factors like earnings and sentiment and that sort of thing. Well, you say there's some pricing mechanisms supposed to be fair in a sense in the stock market, but when you have all these tokens flying around the world on your house or some group of houses, how do you price them? Well, the platform owner at that point, or the regulator, they're the only people that can set a price for your tokens at that point. They want to make them more or less, whatever. They just do it. There's no mechanism in this thing to say, well, there's going to be a liquid market for these tokens once they're released to the ethersphere. This makes no sense to me at all. I think they're lying through their teeth because they can't prove there'll be a market for your tokens after when you buy them. Now, having said that, if you bought some tokens on somebody's house that just sold somewhere, okay, you would hold those tokens. You might get rent out of them, revenue stream off of those tokens. You'll be that's fine for you. You don't worry about the underlying property at that point. But the people who let loose of that property in the first place, they transfer their title to be tokenized in the first place. At that point, there has to be a manager appointed for that property who's going to fix the air conditioner. You own the tokens. You have no responsibility to maintain the property. You're going to let somebody else do that? Well, who's the property manager now? Well, they don't say exactly who's that going to be. Who's it? Local firm, national company do it. If you don't maintain these properties, they're going to fall apart eventually. This isn't specified at all in these contracts. This is absolutely nuts. I've said for so many years, this would be the biggest property land grab in the history of the world if these people get away with it.
When I asked the AI about it, well, for example, a $500,000 property could be split into 500,000 tokens at $1 each. You buy 1,000 tokens for 0.2% ownership. If you want out, you sell those tokens on a market in minutes, no full property sale needed. Now, I said, well, wait a minute now. What is the difference from having a line of credit on your home? Because people can get a line of credit. You know, I bet there's people in this audience who have their house paid for. And so they get a line of credit against their house so that if they want to tap into the equity, maybe there's an emergency. So they go to the bank or a lender and they say, okay, my house is worth $400,000, $300,000, and I want to be able to borrow up to half of the equity in my house. And you go through the process, you get approved, they set the interest rate and how it may or may not vary or be locked in or for how long. And then they give you either a card that you can actually swipe or they give you a checkbook. And many in this audience, I'm sure, have done that for emergencies and they never use it. Or if they do, they use it and then they pay it right off again. But some people maybe never use it. They have that line of credit and maybe every 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it is, the lender calls you up and says, you got to renew again. The contract is old and we got to get a new one now. But you keep that line of credit on that you can write a check on. So if there's a medical emergency, you say, okay, here's $20,000. I had a big deductible with the insurance company or whatever. And then you pay that $20,000 off back down again to you have your house fully paid for. How is that coming in and out different? So I asked the AI. Now this we can show. Let's go ahead and show this, Logan. Okay. Here is a side-by-side comparison between blockchain fractional real estate investing, what we were discussing, and a home equity line of credit or a HELOC. Okay. Blockchain fractional investing, what you actually get. You own a small percentage fraction of a property, say 0.5% of a $600,000 rental house. Home equity, you borrow money against the equity in your own home, you still owe 100% of your home, own 100% of your home. And a relationship to the property, you are a partial owner or investor. Whereas in the home and equity line, you are a borrower. The bank has a lien on your home. Money flow with the blockchain. You put money in to buy tokens, earn rental income, and potential appreciation. On your HELOC, you take money out of your home's equity, you pay it back plus interest. Risk profile on the blockchain. Investment risk, property value drops, bad tenants, you can lose what you invested, no personal debt. On the other side, debt risk. If you can't repay, the bank can foreclose on your home on the HELOC. Liquidity, how fast can you get your cash? Very high with blockchain. Sell your tokens in minutes, hours, or on a secondary market. High on your own HELOC, high once approved, but it's a loan. You have to repay. Closing the line or selling your home takes time. Okay, income on the blockchain. You receive pro rata rental income, often paid monthly or daily in stable coins. In the HELOC, you pay interest to the bank, and no income from line itself. Purpose for the blockchain: invest for passive income, diversification, and long-term growth. Okay, otherwise, obviously, it's access to your cash for whatever you need. Leverage on the blockchain: low to moderate, you usually buy with cash, and then whatnot. And then go back to the blockchain. Ownership is digital, transparent, tradable, 24/7. Okay. I think what we have to say here is the difference between a HELOC is, hey, that's for emergencies. But that's you getting a line of credit on your own home. What I'm hearing here is on the blockchain side of it,
That's all goes away.
What's that?
It goes away. With blockchain, the ability to borrow goes away. You'll never take your tokens to the bank and say, I want to borrow $500,000 or $5,000 on my tokens. That's not legitimate collateral, and it will never be legitimate collateral.
But where it could come in is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because that's what it seems to be saying, is you can own a small percentage or a fraction of a property. Okay, so if you tokenize a house, who's going to buy the mortgage? Is now your mortgage no longer going to be one bank? Is your mortgage now going to be held by multiple groups, so various stable coins? So does a mortgage now, instead of going to a lender, you now go out onto the market and you put in your information and you say, I'm trying to qualify to buy a house, and here's my credit rating, and my income and everything else. You pop in there, and now people start bidding to buy tokens into the property you're about to buy. Is this what we're talking about?
Not exactly, because you talk about who's going to own the property. You're not going to own that property. The token owners are going to be they're the ones that are going to benefit.
They're going to be the bank, is what I'm saying.
Well, in a sense, that's exactly.
I guess let me go back to what I'm saying here. Make sure you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
So instead of going to traditional lending institutions, are you going to be able to go online, put in all your information, and then various people out there, individuals, can see, here's a guy wanting to buy a house, and I will buy tokens to finance his purchase. Okay, I'll loan him the money through tokens. And now, instead of one institution loaning you the money to buy that house, you may have 100 Americans who say, I'd love to be in the rental business, but I can't afford to go buy a rental property, but I can buy some tokens. And now your mortgage is financed and owned by 100 people, 200 people, whatever percentage it is. Is that what we're talking about here? Because otherwise, how would you own a small percentage or a fraction of a property, and get paid and supposedly make money on it, which is what they're describing here when I asked AI about it? Which means, how is this not going to put a lot of traditional lenders out of business, Patrick?
You're seeing the big picture here. It is going to put a lot of lenders out of business and lots of banks out of business as well. This is the reason that so many banks are pushing back against the Clarity Act right now. They can't speak publicly about it because it would cause runs on banks, I'm sure. But they're pushing back on the Clarity Act, and they want to make sure it doesn't pass because this would pave the way for token holders to get revenue streams off of their properties that are represented.
So what I explained to you, we're just coming up with this here live on the air. So what I just explained to you is accurate. You're going to probably see a day where you go online and you put in money into the system, you buy tokens, and you take your tokens, which are now, I guess, some kind of medium of exchange, and you go in with your tokens and you put them into somebody's account, and you do an online contract, through some company, I guess it'll be some online company, like an online title company that handles all these and handles all the signatures and the digital, signatures where everybody's used to doing now. And you put it in there and you qualify as a client of that new online, I'm guessing some kind of online digital title company. They've qualified you, they approve you, and now they put your mortgage out on the market, and people come in with a promise of return for a certain percentage, and they start buying percentages of your mortgage until all of the $300,000 for the house has been raised, or maybe you're putting down 50, so they got to raise 250. And so that 250,000 has been raised, and then that money obviously then is passed off to whoever the seller of the home is. And then the people that have the tokens sit and wait for a return on their investment each and every month with a profit. Now that sounds, in some sense, it sounds kind of cool in one sense, right? But but in another sense, like you said a while ago, now I'm thinking, what do you do with your local bank? This is how they stay afloat and do the fractional reserve banking, because they don't have the money. It's out in the market. They need this money to keep rolling in and out and everything, right? To stay whole. So if I find out all of a sudden the bank where I have some of my money is maybe going to really get hurt from this, don't you say, I'm getting out of traditional banking, and you start, as you say, running to the bank and saying, I'm getting my money out of traditional banks. I think they could be going down if this goes through. But maybe that's the goal.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
But do I have it right on, you might end up having companies created that are basically digital title companies online that they take all your information like a title company would now, and they put you into the system, and then they put that out on the market, and people start buying up your mortgage. And that could take minutes. And I'm sure they're going to be rated. You're going to be able to go on there and see what market, here's a great market, the Memphis market. Here's how the Memphis market relates to other markets in the country. Well, here are the hottest markets and the best place to be investing in as a real estate owner. And you can't afford to buy a full house, but you can buy a percentage of a house with hundreds of other people. And this is a hot market, whatever that USA town is. And then here are your best people. Maybe it doesn't have your name, but it's got a number. This client here, he's got amazing credit and he's got a great income. And this guy is like, out of 5 stars, he's 5 stars. And the people start running because they see the rating system and they start buying into that. And in a matter of minutes, you could have your full funding. Boom. And you go right and close on your house. I mean, if what I'm explaining to you is really how it's going to work,
I don't see it playing out that way, because technocracy has always wanted to do away with property rights in total. Transfer all the private property into global common trust and mine it.
All right, stop right there.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe you just helped me answer the question. Mm-hmm. When you do this with a traditional institution, they have a lien on your property.
Yes, they do.
So who really owns the house? They do. They hold the deed. Mm-hmm. When you pay your house off, you wait that 60 days or whatever it is for the warranty deed to come in the mail with a special stamp, and it's usually pressed down with one of those like stapler looking machines that makes the paper have a raised feel and seal, right? And a notary public. And now you hold the deed and you put it in your files and in your safe deposit box or whatever you do. And that paper shows you own this house free and clear. But prior to that, the institution had it with a lien against your home recorded with the local treasurer or the county treasurer.
Yeah.
Now, who holds the title deed if 250 people have given $1,000 each for $250,000, because you're buying a $300,000 house, you're putting down 50, it leaves 250. So 250 people come in, each offer $1,000. And now you have 250 people that own your home. Who holds that deed? Who holds that, right? So now you have a company conveniently set up that holds the title. Who is that company that is the title holder for those 250? If you're a technocrat, who holds that 250 in your mind? That title for that 250,000 and that property.
Companies like BlackRock, or you might remember after 2008 to 10, all of these homes were being bought up by BlackRock by the thousands across the country. They would even buy up whole tracts of new homes, and they turn them into rentals on day one. And they're the people that hold the title at that point, and then they rent these homes back to people. That's the income stream. There was a great article, I think it was in Forbes, that analyzed the metrics that caused BlackRock to be in the rental business, because they figured they could make more money off of you collecting rent than they could by financing your home and only taking money off the loan. And this changed the whole matrix of investing in homes like that. So other companies started and do the same thing. State Street and some others just came in and started snapping these homes up. And these homes will never see private ownership again. They're in the hands of institutional investors that have since tokenized them, by the way. So they have the title in their hand, but they've tokenized, they've spread all these tokens all around the world and into investment funds and whatever, and other investment funds, mutual funds perhaps as well. But the title is mute at that point. It really exists in time and space. I understand that, but it's mute in the sense there's no way to get all of the tokens representing your home, your former home, together in one place, so somebody could take them out of existence and return the home to you. It's a one-way street. The other thing that really bothers me, they never say, where's the market for these things? Where's the secondary market? That you can't expect, well, somehow it's going to materialize if I hold this for 5 years and I want to cash out now. I had a medical emergency. I have all these tokens. I want to get rid of them so I can have my procedures. Where are you going to sell them? I've seen this. The liquid forms of investment have been the bane of investors and the boom for the institutional people, because this is how they sell it. Well, we'll buy it back from you, or there'll be a vibrant market for your tokens down the road. I say, show me the market. Show me examples where people have bought tokens and they had to turn around and resell them someplace else. I don't think we're going to see this at this point. This is the tragedy of losing control of private property in the first place. Once it sits in static hands, there's no reason for them to ever let go. At that point, they're going to collect the rent off that property, and hopefully they'll maintain it. Like I said, how does a BlackRock have all the maintenance facilities to take care of all the homes they have? Well, they part it out to regional companies around the country to take over the maintenance. But stories are flooding the internet on how bad that's working out for the consumer. Things don't get fixed. There's mold in the homes, and they're falling apart. The windows are falling out. The air conditioners are broken. That's tough in Phoenix. People are complaining that these properties aren't being maintained properly. So this is going to be a disaster in making, I think, but especially for property rights, because America can't exist without property rights. This is what I've been saying forever. all of the small businesses in America, at some point in their history, you'll see a story. Some guy had an idea, and he wanted to had to finance himself. He went and borrowed money on his home. He had equity, raising in value, whatever. He bought got a loan, started his business, started hiring people. He made a profit, hired more people. You have a small business now is growing. This is how America has been put together in the last 200 years, based on private property. The technocrats want to take private property, the concept of it, out of circulation, period. They want to reduce everybody to be a renter.
All right, so I asked the AI about it. Okay, they said, okay, you can show this, Logan, the most common realistic right now, equity, fractional ownership, investors, co-owner the house via an SPV. This matches the second structure I described earlier. A new Delaware LLC is created specifically for that one property. The LLC holds the legal title deed to the house. You and 250 investors buy digital tokens that represent fractional shares in that LLC. You, the original owner, might keep a large portion, 20%, 80%, while selling the rest to the investors, or everyone buys in together. This by far the most common model today for tokenized single-family homes. Real platforms doing this. Realty, one of the biggest. Each rental house goes into its own Delaware LLC. Investors buy tokens starting at $50. They get their share of rent paid weekly in stable coins, plus appreciation. Realty has tokenized hundreds of U.S. properties. And I guess there's another company called Lofty.ai. Very user-friendly. Uses a Wyoming LLCs. Tokens start at $50, rental income paid daily. Investors can vote on property decisions, repairs, selling, etc. Open to non-accredited investors in many cases. Something called Proppy, strong in Colorado and other states, supports both full on-chain closings and fractional tokenized ownership. They handle the legal SPV setup. Okay, so there you go. This is already being done. I just found out. I mean, we just found out in real time. It's already being done.
Exactly. And remember, I just said the owner of the New York Stock Exchange, which owns several exchanges around the world, by the way, they said pointedly, they're starting the process right now to tokenize all the stocks on the New York Stock Exchange. Just think what this means. This is huge. The value that's being the value in tokens. It used to be if currency was going to be increased in society, it's based on getting loans. When you go to a bank to borrow money, money goes into existence. It didn't exist before that, but when you sign the loan, get your money, that money's in circulation now. And the reverse is true. If you go bankrupt or you pay off your loan and whatever, then the currency level goes down, right? When these tokens are created, kind of out of thin air in one sense, especially in the stock exchange, think of the value all of a sudden that's being released into the ethersphere. This is value that can be up for grabs for the token holders and the token brokers along the way. And this is a new level of I think it'll be seen in the end as a system of fleecing for people. But anything that can be tokenized, like Larry Fink said, anything that can be tokenized will be tokenized in the future. This includes the rainforests, the 682 million acres of U.S. land that our government owns and are on our behalf, all the properties and the businesses and stuff in the country. Trump is using his own company, World Liberty Financial, to finance his hotels overseas. And I think it's in... I can't remember the Middle Eastern country that is in, but he's tokenized the income stream off of his hotel. well, they say that's Trump. Who cares? Well, we have to care when huge institutions like Larry Fink is a member of the Trilateral Commission, by the way. When Larry Fink said everything that can be tokenized will be tokenized, and the New York Stock Exchange trots out and says, "Oh, we're going to do it. We're starting now. We're by the end of 26, we're going to start tokenizing all the stocks on the stock market." This is a huge sea change at this point. This is a tidal wave that nobody sees coming.
Yeah. Well, here's an article I just found on it at this website. Lofty Review 2025, powerful tokenized real estate with daily rent and near instant liquidity. And it talks about the Lofty website that I was just talking about a while ago. And you get in it $50 a token. Ownership structured with this LLC. 1 token equals 1 vote. You have income. Rent accrues daily and can be withdrawn or reinvested. Payouts options include transfer, PayPal, whatever. Liquidity, there's no fixed holding period. You can list tokens for sale on Lofty's marketplace, cash out quickly compared with selling a whole house. Yeah, this is going to be, here's the cons and the risk. And they go through them. Yeah, this is really interesting because, I mean, what is this going to do to traditional banking?
Yes,
your traditional lenders must be absolutely freaking out right now, right?
They are. I think they are.
How we always think about the come back to both of us. Thank you. You often think about how powerful the bankers are. How are the banksters or the bankers? How are they letting this happen? What has happened that we've gone from thinking about how powerful the bankers and the central bankers are to this new system getting into place? How has this happened?
At this point, the big 5 or the big 6 banks in our country, the J.P. Morgan's, Chase, the Wells Fargo's, the Bank of America, these are the mega investors in the central bank in the first place.
Right.
All of the other regional banks, the small community banks, whatever, these people are going to be toast. This is why they're pushing back on the Clarity Act.
Let me see if that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What makes up basically the Federal Reserve, which I think is like 12 banks given a federal charter, thanks to 1913. Those big dogs are behind this idea.
They are, totally.
And they're basically
100%.
They're going to get rid of all these other banks that have been their competition.
Mm-hmm. And one fell swoop. Yeah, that's right.
They're going to go from, having to deal with all these banks around the country, the Federal Reserve, to not having to deal with any of them and making their business extremely profitable because now they're going to be taking in more profits. They don't have to worry about banks, local banks, institutional banks being profitable or sharing a piece of the profit with them. They're going to be able to make the profit among the 12 of them. Why work with hundreds or thousands of banks, tens of thousands, whatever it is, when you can cut the whole pie between 12 of you, right?
Exactly. And the big banks, they're not going to make their money off of lending money. In other words, interest-bearing money. You're not going to go to JP Morgan, for instance, and want to buy a house. They're not interested at this point. They want to own these resources because they can make more money, arguably more. I think the statistics that I saw, something like 40% more profit renting than lending money. And at that point, if the debt-based economic system is abandoned and the asset-based economic system takes over, which I think is coming sooner than people think, that means these big banks, they'll be seen as being money lenders for a long time, but they're not lending money. The money that they have, they're putting into rental properties, investment schemes around the country, office buildings, et cetera, and they're collecting the rent off of it.
But it would also mean, would it not, that this generation, particularly young people, they don't really want to be tied down. A lot of them don't want to buy a house because they don't want to be tied down. And of course, this is why they don't care about renting. To them, the American dream is not having a house, buying a house, paying off a house. But what if this new system allows them to buy a house, but they don't have to worry about how quickly they can get out of it? In other words, it will allow some people that don't want to be renters to buy homes, but they don't have the big, lifting to do to sell the house, because the system now is such that you just put your house back into the system and sell it, and you could be gone tomorrow. You could probably sell your house in a day and be gone and go move and jump back in as a qualified buyer who picks up another house. In other words, you could buy and sell very, very quickly with this kind of system, which for some would encourage homeownership, because now it's taken away, I got to buy a house, and then if I want to sell it, I got to wait and all this other stuff. No, not necessarily. So in some sense, it could encourage more to buy. But what if, again, the ultimate goal here is to get everyone used to the idea of not really owning anything?
This is the proposition that Klaus Schwab said several years ago: you will own nothing by 2030. This is the essence of his statement. When property is converted into rental stuff, where the former tenants are encouraged to pay rent and be cashed out, in other words, surrender the titles, let the other company take care of it, and tokenize it. That means you might live in a nice house. You could live in your own house. I could live in this house until I die, possibly. But I'm going to pay a rent to somebody, and they'll set the terms of that rent, and also the terms of maintaining the property that I'm now occupying. And at this point, if something breaks in my house, I do it myself, right? I want to make sure it's going to be done right. I don't want to call somebody that I'm beholden to, say, well, this is what I like, but they'll say, we'll do it any way we want to, so get out of our way. So, this is the essence of private property ownership. You care for the things that you own. This is not the technocratic mindset. The technocratic mindset is they want to own everything in society and turn everybody into renters. This is the whole essence. Remember that cute little girl that was on TV from Denmark or somewhere. She said, "Oh, life is just wonderful. I own nothing, and I'm so happy." So give me a break. She's still, I think she was a member of Parliament or something back then, and maybe Denmark or Sweden. I don't remember which country, but that was all over the internet. It's just. This is a siren call to young people. For sure, you can be happier without owning any property. Some people bought it. Even then, they looked at her as, that sweet, blue eyes, blonde hair. Just, what's not to like? Just if she could be happy, I can be happy. Wow, I don't like it at all.
Aren't we living in interesting days? Technocracy.news, man, we're going to try to keep up with it. It's really kind of hard to wrap your mind around and think about all the different ways and directions and how this could be spun and in some ways become very convenient, very easy, but also very easily manipulated, and people shut down, locked out, banned. Oh, my word, right? No one can buy or sell unless you have the mark. I mean, come on. Ooh, this is getting interesting.
Small details.
Some small details like that. Wow, what a fascinating conversation tonight. Technocracy.news, technocracy.news. What's the brand new book? Hold it up. I think they fixed it so we can actually see the new book's title correctly.
I know. Yeah, there you go.
There it is.
Yes, indeed.
Technocracy.
The new economics of Technocracy.
New economics of Technocracy. You'll own nothing. Wow.
Indeed.
Available at technocracy.news. Thank you, Patrick.
My pleasure.
We'll be right back, guys. Don't go away.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
All right, the former Secretary of the Treasury, Paulson, is out. I mentioned it in my Worldview report tonight. He's saying we need a plan, a break the glass emergency plan. Listen to this, my friends.
This crisis is different, right? When you hit the wall and you're trying to issue treasuries and the Fed is the only buyer and the prices of the treasuries are going down and interest rates are up, that's a dangerous thing. And so the thing I am talking about now is we know, people say, when are you going to hit the wall? I obviously don't know. It's impossible to know. But the law of economic gravity, you're not going to know that. So, and when we hit it, it will be vicious. So we have to prepare for that eventuality. And I think we need an emergency break the glass plan, which is targeted and short term on the shelf. So it's ready to go when we hit the wall.
All right, joining me now is Michael Weiner. What do you make of that, Mike? That's going everywhere the last few days.
Yeah.
So, Hank, we have.
Oh, sorry, that was him again. Go ahead.
It's talking about the debt and the reestablishing of it and paying off the overall interest that is owed upon it. And, you know, this problem that goes on with the debt and the crises goes back all the way to the 70s. So my answer to Mr. Paulson is, where were you? Okay. If you're sitting here and talking about this now, why didn't you deal with it? He didn't. He did nothing. So it's easy to be a Sunday morning, Monday morning quarterback right now, but this problem is severe. It is something that at least Passant is trying to deal with. He's talking about, but it's the only way that I can see them legitimately getting out of this mess is, number one, they're going to want us to pay for it. It's the same thing that's been going on with all the fraud that's going on around the country. The people who are stealing it from us are asking us to put money back in again to pay for it all over again. We're paying for being robbed. And that's what they want us to do right now. And how it's going to happen is we are buying our own debt because nobody else wants to, but they're talking about going digital. It's the same thing as what our dear friend Mr. Nixon did when he went off the gold standard. He's going to sit down and monetize debt and devalue the dollar and absorb the debt through a new currency change. And that's what's going to happen with digital currencies. And that's what we keep talking about. And the stock market is not insulated to take it. It will, the ultimate result will be some people are not going to recover from that, and they're not going to be planned if they don't have any physical asset base in their portfolio. The only way to deal with this debt is devaluation. That's the only way. And the problem is devaluation is going to make us pay for the ridiculous debt that they have built this nation up to. And it's not getting better. It's getting worse. And when we are going to hit the wall, who knows? We could be at the wall right now and we don't even know it. But the issue is people don't pay attention to it. They are not dealing with it. Their way of dealing with it is ignoring it. Or me listening to somebody tell me that somebody's husband, well, it's ridiculous. We don't need gold. We don't need to have gold in our portfolio. It's ridiculous investment. Well, really, it's ridiculous. Find me a central bank globally that's buying U.S. stocks, ETFs, and all the rest of the garbage that they're buying. They're buying gold in their central banks to insulate themselves because the fallout of the U.S. debt is going to be a ripple effect globally. And it's going to be handled literally through this digital currency, cryptocurrency blend of devaluation and debasement that's going to make us pay for the debt they gave us. That's how it's going to happen, Brannon. And people have been warning it all the way back to my dear friend Franz Pick, who warned of this in his book in 1980. He warned of debasement and devaluation at that point. And here we are. And I guess the wall has been something we could have hit under Larry's situation. We could have hit it 6 months ago, or 6 days ago, or 2 hours ago. We don't know. That's why they're planning this new currency. That is going to be their escape hatch. And it's going to be paid upon us, and we're going to pay for it. And when we talk about preparedness and getting under the radar, that's why gold is so important, because gold will go up as an anchor to protect you while this insanity does occur. And if you don't have it, people who sit back and think that their estates are all insulated because they've got the greatest investment advisor that walked the planet Earth. And where was he in 2008? I guess he was on vacation. So I would assume that that's exactly what we're going to be looking at in the days, months, and weeks ahead.
We're going to, looks like the U.S. Treasury is going to be going to quantitative easing again in the second quarter. Is that true? Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah.
So more printing money, more debasement, more of your dollars going down in value.
Correct. And more of us paying for it. For the last, in my lifetime, which, as you know, Brannon, spans thousands of years.
Yes, it does.
Exactly. We have been passing the buck, and we have sat back and allowed ourselves to pay the tab. The people we are paying the irresponsibility of the people in Washington. Their way of dealing with it, with quantitative easing, and again, with the future currency change, is a way to deal with it, to have us pay for it. And there's going to be a comeuppance. And you might get mad at your congressman or congresswoman, and now we've got the socialists out there who are openly socialist. Mandani, I mean, he'll just fly back to Nigeria or wherever the heck he comes back, or Mars, wherever that idiot comes from. He's going to go back and live on his palatial estate with his parents, who probably own more gold than he can shake a stick at. But be assured of the fact that we are going to pay it through quantitative easing, and that'll be the beginning of getting us set up for the finale, which will be the devaluation and debasement of the currency.
Well, there you go. Treasury boosts quarterly borrowing estimates to $189 billion. I think we were at $79 billion. Yeah, there it is. We were at $79 billion. Now we're up to $89 billion. Oh, as of May 4th.
Yep. And it will continue to go up. And the people who are paying it, and the problem in America is people don't feel it, but they will. They haven't felt it because, like I said, they can come home, have a beer, watch a football game, and that's it. But when they don't have a home to go to, or a chair to sit in, or legitimately a beer to drink, then they'll have a reality. And that's what happened in the 30s when people lost their homes, because they devalued the dollar, they lost their money, they couldn't spend and could afford to maintain their lifestyle. And the little things they took for granted are not there anymore.
Yep. All right, let's go to another one. Warren Buffett. We're getting reports here. I got to find the report. That's not it. But Warren Buffett, $400 billion move is starting to worry Wall Street. Makes you wonder what he knows. $400 billion. He's got a bunch of cash sitting on the sidelines, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Why, you think?
Warren Buffett knows that you can't, be robbing from Peter to pay Paul all day long. Warren Buffett knows that a stock market that back in the 70s, when he was a young man and I was, in my middle ages, and at that time, Warren knew that the stock market was an honorable place. It was literally an open outcry scenario. Now the stock market is pick a number. It's all done on computer. We have no open outcry that's worth. That means two people trading things, and people who watch the movie Trading Places and see all these guys trading on a floor. They're not there anymore. There, you see a few of them here and there, but everything's done on computer, and they're talking about trades that are being placed before the market even does it. And that is literally a shell game. He knows it, and he doesn't want to participate in it. He will only participate in what he can target. Warren Buffett's not an idiot. He knows the game, and he sees it being played, and he knows that why is the stock market consistently going up, 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 and up? Because it's pick a number. They're not going to make money. They're not going to get investors if the market goes down. So they're going to keep it going up. They'll have a little correction here or there, just like we just felt a little bit, but they'll get rid of it. And when I sit back and I listen to some idiot the other day telling me, well, why should I buy gold? Gold is a terrible investment. Really, gold's a terrible investment. Well, then why was the structure and financial stability of this nation based on it? Because it surely wasn't based on your stock market. In 1928, we saw a stock market crash. What did gold do? Gold didn't crash. Roosevelt took us off the gold standard so he could steal the gold he had to literally fill his coffers to play the games he did. But it wasn't gold that went under. It was the stock market that crashed. Where's this gold crash? I'm still waiting to see it. So's the Roman Empire, because that's where it all the way goes back to. So reality is that we will pay the dues for this. We have already. They don't want to deal with the debt that they have in nations. We have Illinois. They have pensions they give out to people for $110,000. If you're an art teacher in Chicago and you retire, you get $110,000 a year. That's more than a principal gets here in Arizona. And at the end of the day, how are they going to pay it? They are actually, if the Democrats, socialist, communists they are, get in power, we're going to pay that money for that jerk in Illinois who's getting a pension he doesn't deserve because of the fact that they overspent the money they have. And I'm not saying teachers are bad. I'm saying their union's bad, Illinois is bad, the system is bad, and I don't know if we're ever going to fix it. I just don't see it. I just don't.
Well, and we know that the progressives want to confiscate whatever money you guys have earned in your lifetime. So again, I don't know why people wouldn't want to take advantage of moving some of this off the radar, off the bullseye, right? And that's what you can do, right?
Absolutely. It's called getting out of the game. When you don't trust who's cooking dinner, as my grandpa used to say, don't eat. And I don't trust any of these guys. When people say to me now, well, you know, how much gold do you actually have? Well, what do you feel comfortable with? What do you feel comfortable with? Do you know in 2008, for some of you people who can understand it, there was millions of people who had to go back to work that were retired. There was millions. I still remember, Brannon, people from Worldview telling me that their children who were 45 years old moved home with their family, moved home because they lost their houses. That was just a taste. You know, right now we have learned nothing from that. We did the show a couple of weeks ago regarding the fact of the government allowing this bogus investments in 401ks and then allowing them to do it. It's all a shell game. And I just can't see a change in that. That's why we so desperately recommend people protect themselves. But then they get off the stone with us right now. They get off the listening, the little chair, and they call up their financial person and, oh, those guys are crazy. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. What happened in 2008? If it was going to be fine, why did people have to go back to work? And oh yeah, their financial genius they had 3 days before it happened just couldn't answer the phone back then. They disappeared, but then they called us up for help. I'm just telling you right now, if you don't pay attention to what's going on and act responsibly in this environment, you're going to pay the dues, you're going to pay the cost of other people's irresponsibility, and you ultimately will have a retirement legitimately, could be in a park.
And now we're hearing about food inflation. Worst, let me go to that article here. Let's see here. Here it is. The food inflation crisis will soon be all investors are talking about. That's from Market Watch. And of course, then you add that to this story. Worst drought in 131 years grips 63% of the U.S. with no end in sight. So again, all of this is going to be creating economic issues for the country. You're going to have to bail out farmers. You're going to have businesses having problems, not to mention just what your retail store is going to be facing. And of course, the solution for all of this is going to be inflationary, right? To print more money, to solve the problem, expand the size of government, offer more bailouts. And then, of course, you're just going to have inflation, not from printing money. You'll have inflation from supply and demand issues. There are less supplies, more demand, price goes up. So, again, you're going to have multiple things here working against the dollar and bringing down the value of the dollar, correct?
Correct. And, you know, that's why when we talk about even with your freeze-dried foods, these guys don't like it because it's a probably good solution to have it because it gives you a way of offsetting some of these inflationary costs, but they talk it down. Oh, it's reactionary. You don't need that, you know. But then they tell you to go get that $9.99 meal from McDonald's and stick that poison down your throat. So, you know, as long as you can, you know, buy that and perpetuate their stupidity, the inflation on food is legitimately out of control. And people are feeling it at the grocery store. I know I am. I go to the grocery store and I just buy a few things and I'm looking at like $50 of what? If you go to you go to the drugstore and you buy a few different items and the next thing you know, it's $35 for like looking at toothpaste and some razors. And next thing you know, you go, God, how do people get by? And the solution is listening to socialism. Socialism is why the Russia went out of business because eventually there's not enough to share. So they either want you to die or they want your quality of life to be so low that you won't really feel it because you'll just be a robot.
Yep, indeed. All right, guys, get your free packet. No obligation, no risk. So what do you got to lose? 1-877-864-1072, 1-877-864-1072, or worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com. Thank you, Michael Weiner. By the way, are your phones ringing over there? Are your phones ringing?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And we're getting a lot of good informational requests and people contacting us. I just feel sad for some of them, and I'm digressing for a quick moment. For the people who get on there and then their husband say, well, I want to, what the wife say, I want to do it. And the husband say, no, I got my genius over at Morgan Stanley. I don't need to do this. He's an idiot. You know, don't listen to that guy at Swiss America. He's nuts. I forgot more than your guy at Morgan Stanley knows. I've been around. I forgot more. And I lost more money than he has. At the end of the day, you're right. And there's every single time the women and they seem to be more responsible, play into it, they win. I've got clients from Worldview from 17 years ago that are smiling right now, and their husbands are now agreeing that I might have made a mistake.
The husbands are saying that they made a mistake and their wife was right.
Exactly. Most of the time, the women are the sharper of the two and more conservative of the two, and they want something physical. Hello, Melissa. Thank you.
Well, I am not shocked. Our largest demographic is women 50 plus. That's our biggest demographic. And many of them are the ones that we see pull the trigger on a lot of things whenever we offer a new DVD. When we were doing that, when we'd offer up a conference, it was the women registering everybody. It was a lot of times the women in the house were the wife was the mother was the one doing the work, doing the research. And that was who we saw the largest response from. When I wrote my first book on education, which was my second book in 1993, that came because of women who would send me manila envelopes full of information from all over the country after they would hear me speak on what was happening in their child's school. And I largely wrote my very first book on education because of the mothers that were the ones leading the charge. So again, I'm not shocked that we find a lot of the ladies are doing the work, the homework, the research, the reading. But you are finding that some of the men will finally say, you know, I'm glad my wife helped me make this right decision.
And we've got a lot of guys that are getting very sharp right now and catching on to the fact that a lot of these financial planners are legitimately blowing a lot of smoke at them and then legitimately disappearing when they need them. So I always say to everybody, and I've said it to you yourself, Brandon, it's your money. This is not your financial planner's money. It is your money. So please keep that in mind when you do your investing. That's the most important thing. You're the loser, not me.
But you have had some of those women that went into this direction 17, 15, 16, 17 years ago, and the husband wasn't sure about it, and now the husband's quite excited that the wife...
Oh, absolutely. And he's even bigger and committed than the others. And I still have some people right now that are struggling, that really have for years wanted to get something started, but their mate is absolutely, totally against it. And I've always been a believer that you've got to honor each other and then be able to give space to the other person. If they truly want to do something, then give them the opportunity. It's their money just as well as yours. But we have a lot of people that are just like under the thumb. And even though they want to do it, they can't do it because they're being blocked by their mate.
Wow. Well, let's get this worked out. It starts with a free packet. Maybe order that and go through it with your spouse. 1-877-864-1072. As always, Michael, thank you.
Well, let me talk to them together, and I'll take care of it. Good night, Dolly.
She's right. All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Hey, don't forget MelissaProtein.com. MelissaProtein.com. She's crazy about this. She talks to me about it all the time. It's helped her lose weight, but it's also given her more energy, and it's also helping her with her muscle mass. MelissaProtein.com. Another great way, I think, to support your health and support us at the same time. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. And as always, I want to point you to worldviewfoundation.com as well to consider making a contribution, setting up an automatic monthly contribution, because life gets busy, but we got to keep the funds coming in to keep pushing out all the great content like you've seen tonight. And that we'll also put up online for you to watch again tomorrow or share with family and friends. All right? worldviewfoundation.com. Thanks for watching, and thank you for telling people about our broadcast and network and praying for us as well. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values,